Whew. Morning. So it's the 13th of February 2021. I'm out in the woods again. Let's give you a bit of a look around. Most of the snow's cleared, but it's still so cold that even in sunlight the icy patch is still here. Am I gonna? No. Dangerous stuff. Wonder if I'll trip over it on the way back. But yeah, it's got to be around 0, if not slightly below, for all this snow not to have melted. It's about 11:15 in the morning. Yeah. And this may be a short trip because I've come out minimally with just the selfie stick and the action camera. Just for a quick wander, a patrol if you will, my exercise for the day, so I don't just sit huddling in the warm. And yeah, there wasn't a video yesterday purely because my exercise portion was taking up with going and doing a little bit of shopping. You should be able to see that. It's quite nice out here. Yeah, so I did not charge up the action camera. I need to make a mini pod, a mini camera pod for when I'm just out for a walk. I mean, I could use the phone that's in my pocket, but you know, maybe the mini pod needs to contain a phone adapter for the selfie stick, but I don't think its camera's all that good. Certainly not as good as this one. So if you're thinking of getting an action camera, a Firefly 8 SE has survived 2 years of my ownership nearly. Yeah. Thank you to all the people that chipped in 2 years ago to buy the whole camera rig. Sadly the gimbal did not survive. Let's have a look at the ranger's equivalent of the Lucky Rock. Be in the river. Yeah. Hopefully it's just too cold. For people to be out doing anything other than worshipping at the Church of Retail, which, to be fair, I did the other day. I realised that, you know, finally, it only took me 50 years, the realisation of making your environment nice is a good thing. So yeah. So the thing that was making my house feel like home was just untidiness and things not being in the right place. So yesterday I committed to filling in a whiteboard every morning, or from the previous day, to show what tasks need to be done, or tasks I would like to be done that would make me feel better. And then when I woke up this morning, the studio was still tidy, my coffee was ready, I had my glass of water, I had my 5-minute sit and think, I made my bed, and I feel pretty good about it. I'm currently watching the new Adam Curtis documentary series, which I thoroughly recommend if you've got the energy for it, because it is very political and explains how things fail. And you could do a lot worse than learn from it. So, yeah, on this very short video, my very short patrol, my hand holding this selfie stick is already very numb. But yeah, it's cold, it's brisk, fresh. However pointedly, you know, upbeat way you want to put it, it's cold. It's cold in my house. But yeah, you know, a little bit of discomfort is good for the soul. Makes you appreciate all the things when there is everything there that you need. And I've just started going through. I'm going to have to add like a list of things, that I no longer need. Just like I don't need any more tech. I've got like optimum technology for what it is I'm doing. I don't need more cameras. I don't need more computers. I don't need anything like that. That's good. I really don't need any more pens, pencils or paper, because I put those into one of my cube storage unit boxes, and just the paper filled up the entire cube. So I know stationery is very attractive, the idea of a new book to start filling in. So I think today's project, if you can call it a project, is to follow Harlequin's example with a list of future purchases and a list of things in which I am replete, things I no longer need. So yeah, so it's an interesting old setup now. All the places in my house where it was too untidy to be, it's now just too cold to be. So yeah, so that's a good thing. Hopefully doing another show at some point today for Team Human. And today's show will be extremely random. It's like I just went into my singles collection and pulled out everything I like the look of and all the punk. Which I'll be playing from 45s. So you hear all the lovely crackle and pop when I play that. I've got some little short tasks that I want to do today, but I'm going to do those while I'm cooking breakfast. So yeah, or brunch as it will be when I get home. Whew. So yeah, got a day planned out. So yeah. Reason I'm watching my feet is there are still patches of ice and stuff all over the place. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty sanguine about the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, as far as non-mundane thoughts, just sort of getting those 5 E's in, exercise, education, entertainment, environment and expression. So yeah, I'm getting a whole jimmy whack of expression and produce some media and think on the Adam Curtis documentary, which does all hark back to the whole idea of the society of the spectacle and how revolutionary tendencies have been pushed into media, which, while it keeps that flame alive, it's kind of like life support for any meaningful change. The meaningful change has to come from people, and maybe it does need to come in the form of a religion or an ethics system that looks like a religion. Start gathering together sovereign humans, which would be a very funny thing to talk about and refer to each other as sovereign human. Yeah. Maybe that needs to be in the title in the way that comrade, was used in the Soviet Union to refer to each other, because all other forms of address were oppressive. Whereas sovereign human is an uplift title. What ho, sovereign human? And in that way we could possibly secede, even if it took a generation, which we may or may not have, due to environmental and economic concerns. So yeah, I don't know. You know, you can always secede in your mind. You can always observe and say, right, beyond this door is the society of the spectacle. But within these walls, I am free to educate myself. And I admit I'm in a lucky position. I've got internet, I've got a roof over my head, I've got enough food, water, and all that sort of gubbins. You know, I have the means to survive and the means to educate myself. So even if you are just going to sit there for the first hour of the day and watch a few YouTube videos, maybe it's time we all started watching something a bit more nourishing, intellectually speaking. You know, not just skills, but, you know, expose yourself to some philosophy and some art. And if you find that stuff you like, try and work out why it is you like it. I mean, art is still the spectacle. Art is an emotion at one remove, as is music and sculpture. You're distanced from the object or the piece of work. You're distanced from the artist, and you're trying to make that connection with the artist, who's desperately trying to say, I feel this too. But, you know, is there a way of expressing truth that is not an emotional truth, that is like a logical truth? You know, is there a way of upgrading people via media? You know, not whether they want to or not, but if, you know, I'm quite happy to play something to 100 people and get one person that is better off as a result of seeing that work. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to make YouTube videos. So, yeah. And I don't mean like Schoolhouse Rock, where it's like educational, or Sesame Street level. What if punk basically told you about Guy Debord or Aristotle, or, you know, things like that, you know, uplift, so you don't have to work it out. You know, humanity doesn't have to work out the answer twice if it's a functional answer. You know, is there you know, what if there was a big book of truth? You know, even a little book of truth. There's probably only a little book of truth. There's truth plus accepted scientific theory and fact. There's truth plus, you know, solid philosophical, you know, imaginings. And then once you've got to that truth, mix and match it with what ifs. You know, oppressing people is bad. That's the truth. Yet we do it. Leaving people to suffer is bad. Is a truth, but we do it. You know, I'm not sure that I could, but there again, I'm not in that position. You know, if I was a billionaire, you know, would I be able to go, yeah, I don't need all this money. I'm sorted for the rest of my life. Here's all that money. I don't have, you know, I don't have the strength to give away all the money that I don't need. Is this ice or is this glass? That's ice. Yeah, so it's still so cold that a lot, you know, even at like nearly 11 o'clock, some of this river is frozen and there are icicles and stuff like that that have yet to be swept away. So it's got to be below zero, because at zero moving water would just melt all that ice, and it has melted some of it. So I'm reckoning it's about -2. If you're into a weather report in England, you know. And it's still pretty pansy, you know, of me to declare it cold. There are people that I know in the north of the United States whose countries aren't warmed by the Gulf Stream, and they're getting pounded by snow and blizzards and stuff. So yeah, it's all relative, you know. There are people in Australia that this kind of weather would probably do for if they were exposed to it. But you know, depends where you are in Australia. Australia's not all like a baking hot desert. Sometimes it gets really cold. So yeah, is there a way of putting truth into art so it isn't part of the spectacle? Is there a way of writing science fiction in a way that you can't help but pick up on, you know, what's going down? You know, science fiction's always about today. It's not about the future. So when you see the expanse and you see people being oppressed for the benefit of greedy corporations and greedier planets, you know, are you learning anything about modern oppression, even though it simplifies things into essentially 3 or 4 factions with only a few people able to step between them? I mean, the point of the expanse is this is what happens when people work together and they can achieve and prevent terrible shit from happening. It's a pretty simple message. It's the same sort of message as Star Trek, only when people are united, you know, and free to express themselves, which you never really see on Star Trek. You don't really see in science fiction just somebody sitting down and playing the guitar or writing a poem or writing a novel or anything, or just writing a journal, because a journal is a novel, because it's always your own personal truth, but it's no less valid for that, you know. And I get into the stage in my life where I can see the point of reading a story about someone that's entirely unlike you, so you can gain better understanding and, you know, exhibit more compassion, and at least find your way to making that compassion that, you know, your life was too busy for you to hold, but a compassion that now is that you're able to share. So yeah, can you get truth punk or science punk? It probably exists, you know. You know, what if the back of a punk single came with some useful links, and the band themselves sort of sit down and go, right, I don't expect you to read a book for the next 3 weeks and then expect that that book contains all the truth. There isn't one. But this seems pretty plausible to me. Yeah, so philosopher punks. I mean, most of the surviving punk bands have a certain amount of philosophy with it. You know, even if it's just pushing against constraint. You know, I mean, yeah, people were beaten up as a result of listening to jazz, you know, which was trying to tell the truth about emotion and humanizing people that could play jazz, which is why it was so unpopular with the white authorities in America. And then jazz begat rock and roll, you know, and the purveyors of such were seen as what do you call it, bad social influences, that's probably a word, you know, destroying the minds of the youth and encouraging them to break the rules. And then rock and roll begat pop music, which was the acceptable end of rock and roll. But even then, when pop music changed to something like psychedelia in the 60s, that was, again, it was a bad influence on the children, which I think it's Aristotle. It's Aristotle or one of those Greek philosophers, I shall put it down on here, that was cited as a bad influence on children 2,500 years ago. You know, a terrible influence on the youth. So yeah, well, you don't know whether that's going to spark another idea in someone else. You know, but just imagine that. If you are a musician and you are in a band, and rather than saying stuff's broken, you know, it's a punk record on the along the lines of I seceded from humanity today. And what does that secession look like? You know, what if it was a prog rock piece about a bunch of people in modern society that just stopped, you know, that just rejected the society of the spectacle and limited their interaction with society whilst providing the basic needs, the human needs of a society themselves. I mean, that's the real, that's where the metal will meet the meat. You know, that's where it will all go decidedly wrong. And And I know I'm coming back on myself, but I got into a bit of a flow. So yeah, you know, if enough people just went, nope, worldwide, your representatives would need to be what the Irish Republican Army used to call lily-whites, people with no criminal history, with no criminal activity. Those will be the people you need to leave. You know, you couldn't have leaders with any kind of dig-uppable past or any kind of possibility for entrapment. So yeah, you know, so anybody with a criminal record, anybody with a history where they had changed to be a better person would need to step back. You know, so a revolution would run on a lack of power, almost. You know, the refusal to engage. You know, there would just be advisors. There would just be gardeners and farmers and school teachers and stuff. You know, and what if, you know, with coronavirus, people have done more homeschooling, so they're more, you know, in tune with the idea that going to a building that's run by the government is a good place to teach children. And some schools are good and some schools are bad, you know. Some of the most well-funded schools do things that brutalise and you know, dehumanise people. You know, especially places like Gordonstone or Harrow or Eton are there to dehumanise people, to separate them from their emotional response, so that it can go on and be wealthy without being completely torn up about it, so that they can lead without ability and not doubt themselves. You know, we're taught to doubt ourselves. Oh, if we're good enough, we'll get this piece of paper that says we can do this job. But if we don't, or we're having a bad day on the day that we sit down and take the exam, or you know, some other circumstance, or my way of learning doesn't actually fit in with a massively underfunded state school, then that's it, you're on the scrap heap. Some of the most intelligent people I know, and certainly some of the best artists, came out of school with very little in the way of qualifications. But qualifications, you know, the very word is oppressive. Are you qualified? And if you start asking that question up society, like you follow the chain of power and you get to the very top, largely those people aren't qualified to lead. They're not the best of us. You know, their parents happen to be the wealthiest of us. And that kind of wealth, you know, transmuted into power is some major grade bullshit. You know, it's the sort of thing that I have been, and I would be, embarrassed to tell a child. I was just going, but why? Why does this person have all these things and we have nothing? Well, you know, that's very much like the Martin Luther King speech, where his daughter can't go, I think it's to a circus, and he has to tell her that it's because of the colour of her skin, and he has to watch his child cry. You know, why can't we go and do this? Well, because we don't have enough money. Well, why don't we have enough money? Well, because people in power tend to only pay the bare minimum, and they've gotten away with it for so long, and they've transferred jobs to places where people, you know, will work for less money, and that's the long and short of it, and they will oppress and imprison those people. You know, they're, you know, look up Foxconn if you don't already know, where workers, you know, rather than improve the conditions of workers, they put in anti-suicide nets after a few floors in each building so workers couldn't commit suicide while on the job. You know, and if you take away people's future, you know, or their aspirations for the future, or those aspirations for the future are unrealistic, but ploughed in with, you know, a culture that seeks to misinform people and say, oh, you know, to be successful you need to be one of us, you know, and then you look at the path to one of us and it's you have to be extremely wealthy. Well, a working class person is unlikely to become extremely wealthy unless they follow the pattern, essentially, of warlords in the past. You know, if you want to make a lot of money, you've got to take that money from somewhere, and generally speaking it's either cheap raw materials, you know, taken from another country with slave labour, extracting those minerals or those, you know, those raw materials like oil or timber, and then you've got to pay the people that make the thing as little as possible, and then that's how you get lots of money. I mean, Marx is right on that. You know, property is theft, and then you'll hear any person of a right wing determination will say, what, you mean I can't own a television? But Marx was using property in the 1800 sense of the term, as in if you own a factory or a farm and then you rent that out to people in order to make a profit. You know, there's a lot of cultures where land ownership is seen as fairly ridiculous, whereas it is in fact land custodianship. So yeah, something to chew on. Maybe somebody can put that into a punk record or an industrial record where it just flat out tells you a chunk of truth. So yeah, so I'm going to leave it there. I think I've chewed your ears off long enough, and yeah, if you want me to, yeah, I need some ideas. I will continue with my own ramblings, and I'll try and do some scripted stuff, you know, where I can. But it'd be cool to have some ideas. So if there's something you want to see me do, or something you want to see me talk about, that's what comments are for. Comment, people. Like and subscribe, do all that YouTube shit, because it's not for me. I can't actually manifest anything the other side of this screen. If you've watched this all, then you've watched this all. If you got something from it, you got something from it. And I can't know. I can't know if I'm reaching anybody. I can't know if there's any support. We've got 49 subscribers. It's like nearly 5,000 minutes of people's eyeball time. And I appreciate it. Thanks very much for watching. And remember, end greed, end poverty, end hate, or we all die. Thanks for watching, and do take care. I'll speak to you soon.